Hey there, creatives. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Today on season 2, episode 21, I'm talking with drama therapist Krista Verrastro. She has a private practice in Baltimore, Maryland area, and she shares a bit about how she's gone about building her practice, some of the challenges of building as a private practitioner. We don't necessarily, all of us don't necessarily have a license because of the specialty that we have. And that kind of forces people into having to build and not be able to take insurance funds. And so it can be a little bit more challenging. So she shared a little bit about how she's faced that, how long it took her to build up to being full and remaining full. And she shares about how she's done a little diversification in her practice and created really unique, dynamic offerings that go beyond therapy and have brought her out into her community and into other businesses within her community, which I think is really cool. So I hope you enjoyed this episode with Krista.
The Creative Psychotherapist is the official podcast of the Creative Clinicians Corner, a practice-building resource for creative psychotherapists. TCP Podcast is the cast for creative, expressive, and experiential-focused psychotherapists curious to learn how to design, build, and scale a thriving private practice. Your host, Raina Lombardi, interviews successful therapists about the tools and strategies they have used to develop creative-focused practices. They also talk about the products, services, and side hustles they have developed using their knowledge and creativity to enhance their therapy practices, make a greater impact in their communities, and diversify their income streams. Welcome. Now here's your host, Raina Lombardi.
Thanks so much for listening to the Creative Psychotherapist podcast. I'm your host, Rena Lombardi, and I am delighted to welcome my next guest, drama therapist Krista Verrastro. And Krista is a registered drama therapist and a board certified trainer who blends drama therapy, talk therapy, and EMDR therapy. She works with teens and adults in private practice in Reisterstown, Maryland. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And she specializes in helping people who feel used, abused, neglected, and rejected transform from surviving to thriving. And this includes people who've experienced various types of abuse or other relational issues that cause people to feel disconnected from themselves and others. She facilitates workshops online and in person, and she provides clinical consultation, private practice building consultation, and supervision for drama therapists in training, as well as new drama therapists. She presents nationally and internationally on drama therapy and mental health issues, and she's worked in a variety of settings, such as outpatient mental health clinics, schools, and nursing homes. She received both her bachelor's and master's degrees from New York University, and she is the administrator of the Facebook group Creative Arts Therapist in Private Practice. Welcome, Krista. Thanks so much for being here.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
So let's dive right in and kind of talk about, I think one of the challenges that we all experience as creative arts therapists is the challenges of how do we market ourselves and be seen as an appropriate option for people in a landscape dominated by more traditional psychotherapy methods.
So I think I've come to view it as a strength to sort of market. When I first went into private practice in 2016, I was like, this is so confusing to people. How am I going to get myself across? Because people always have questions about drama therapy. Um, and I realized one thing that I'll emphasize is it's a matter of speaking to their pain, right? So more and more when I talk to all types of therapists, I was told, yeah, people don't really care what your modality is in a lot of ways. They want to know you understand their pain and that you have a way of helping them with their pain. So I kind of changed in terms of the wording on my website and stuff and how I market instead of it being like I still think I'm front and center with the drama therapy piece of it, but also just being able to talk to the types of clients I like to work with, the niche. Um, and so part of that too for me is, as you mentioned, I work with people who feel used, abused, neglected, and rejected. Lovely little alliteration I came up with.
Mhm. It's awesome.
Yeah. And part of that is people who feel different, right? And for me, like, hey, I'm a drama therapist and I'm different and I have this different thing to offer. So being able to throw that into my marketing to say, like, hey, talk therapy is the normal and normal doesn't always work for everybody. And try something that's a little different. This is something outside the box. So if you've always felt outside the box, try this thing. So I think that's an important aspect of it is it can be built right into niches, right? For a lot of us, we have some of that. And just to be able to speak to our ideal client's pain.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the beauty of recent years is the sort of popularity of creative arts therapies, right? So I know
Yeah.
I get more and more clients who will reach out saying, I read Bessel van der Kolk and I read how the body holds the memories. And, he talked about the drama and the EMDR. And so the fact that I do both those things, people are often intrigued to tackle it in these newer ways that are being talked about. So there's all this like bottom up language we talk about when it used to be the
Mhm.
top down CBT kind of stuff. And so it's been helpful that around the same time that I started private practice, I think this movement was happening where people are starting to seek out more body based therapies.
Oh, for sure. I feel like there's a whole movement, not just with therapy, but just in self-development and even
Mhm,
in that like coaching sphere,
mhm,
um, pulling from different types of somatic methods.
mhm,
And I think that's wonderful that people are realizing, hey, there's more than one way of working through our stuff, our collective stuff.
mm.
And the creative arts therapies have been using those bottom up methods for a really long time, well established.
Yeah, and I think the other piece too is we are trained in talk therapy, right? Like people misperceive that it's all art or all drama. And I explain to people, yeah, there is a cognitive piece, right? We're going
Of
to process
course.
the art stuff that we do. So it's not like we didn't have that in our training. Like I have written a little bit on my blog and stuff about the creative arts therapies in general, just to clear out misperceptions and the myths
Hmm.
about them, right? Um, and I think all of us have that solid background in traditional counseling methods and stuff like that, right? So, yeah, that's something else I think is about educating potential clients or other colleagues who might not be familiar, is to say, I had all the traditional courses and that stuff too. So it's not like
Oh,
we didn't put it
yeah.
in there.
Absolutely. I know for like theories, I had to take both. I had to take theories in art therapy and theories in counseling. And
Mm,
like it was like to duplicate
mhm,
coursework.
yep.
And yeah, so you do get that rich background, but that often isn't the perception of
Mhm,
what the lay public thinks. And
right.
sometimes even other colleagues and professionals.
Mhm.
How have you found it in terms of um, being a drama therapist, but not having a drama therapy license? You have the credentials, right? And even like art therapy, there's only a couple of states that have some kind of license.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us don't carry a license.
Mm-hmm.
How
Yeah.
do you address that in terms of the private practice sphere?
So I always tell people, like, I've been in this field since 2005 and still don't understand everything. Having lived in New York, so the year that the LCAT went into effect in New York is the year I left. So I didn't get it because I was like, well, I'm
Ah,
moving. So why am I going to get this license? It's not going to serve me. Um, but other than that, like, I moved to Maryland, which has no drama therapy license. And when I moved to Maryland, no creative arts therapy held a license. In 2012, art therapists got it. And then just last year, I think the music therapist got one. But theirs is not a psychotherapy license, interestingly, I was informed.
mhm.
So still no dance therapy license here. Um, yeah, so it's yeah, or drama therapy, obviously. Yeah. And a lot of us are told when we move to our states that they won't see our masters as equivalent. So it's, you've got to get a second master's, right? And then who has money and time for that? Long story short, talking to so many people who've been in the field before me, people in it now, paying attention to what state says what about terminology and title
Mhm.
protection and all that. So in Maryland, there is no psychotherapy title protection. So technically, like, I say I'm a psychotherapist, but for the most part, what I and a lot of people do is just really be clear in our marketing to say, like, I'm not representing myself as a professional counselor. I'm not representing myself as a social worker, right? I
Mhm.
am a drama therapist. My
Mhm.
credentials are the highest I can get in my field, right? Like, without there being a state license, I'm practicing under what I can.
Mhm.
Um, and so, I know people in different states who where there's title protection, they're more cautious. And they'll say coaching, different things. But again, I feel like in Maryland, and I've even talked to the counseling board because since I moved here in 2008, I've like been like, what can I do here? I want to make sure I'm doing everything properly. And I literally had them look at my website and tell me if the language is, accurate and I'm not misrepresenting anything. And they told me I was fine. So I know some people are more skittish than others about this gray zone we're in.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm like, all right, I've always been open about it. I'm not trying to hide anything with my clients. Like, it's in my
Yeah.
paperwork. These are my credentials. If they're, and the thing I also tell people, like, I had one client ever be like, I don't understand your name, like the letters next to your name. And what does that mean? And so I had to explain it. And their main concern was, if ever I had a complaint about you, do you have a board that I could like reach out to? And I said, yeah, absolutely. For all intents and purposes, like, drama therapy's organization acts the same as like a counseling or social worker psychology organization. Like, we have an ethics board, right? Like,
Mhm.
we have those things in place that if ever I was out of line, there's something to hold me accountable. And so I think that's another piece of it. Um, Even to the point of, like you were saying, the education piece people often misperceive. And also, like, CEUs are the same. We have to get
Mhm.
30 every 2 years, just like my understanding is all the other master's level folks have to do. Um, in terms of just all the different things that are in place. Our internship hours and professional hours to get their credentials are basically the same as the counseling, social work, all that. So
Oh,
just
yeah.
advocating to people, like, this is actually the reality of it. Like, I know that it's still very unknown. I always tell people, it's funny because I use art therapy, music therapy as examples when people say, what is drama therapy? I'll say, well, you've probably heard of music, or music and art therapy are more popular, more common. Drama therapy is so small that when I got my credentials in 2007, I was number 374. And now it's up to
What?
the 800s. It's just, I think, just about to hit 900. I was just at the conference 2 weeks ago. We are so
Wow.
small.
That's really tiny. That puts things
Yes.
in like big perspective.
Yeah. So we are small. So I'm so used to advocating for what it is because people just don't know. Right.
Mhm. Do you feel like putting out different workshops or like presentations within your community are helpful
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, in fact, when I started private practice and I followed all the gurus, this is how you build a private practice. And I'm happy to talk sort of about the things that have worked for me. But in the networking, I would talk to all these again, counselors, social workers, psychologists, and they'd be open to me. I was so thankful most people were like warmly embracing me and so curious, right? Like
Mhm.
fascinated and loving it. And in that process and trying to explain it to people, I'd get several practices like, "Hey, come do something for my team. Like I want everyone to learn about this." And I would do like a 1 hour intro to drama therapy, give you a couple brief activities to show you what it's like. And it was a great opportunity to not just build my practice, but speak up for drama therapy in general. So
Yeah.
yeah, it
No,
was really
that's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
Build
Yeah.
relationships, educate other practitioners. I think that's really helpful because if they have an experience of it, then they kind of can understand who might be best to refer to you if maybe they're stuck with a client and
Yeah.
all of the things that they have in their resource bin aren't effective. Sometimes the expressive modalities can provide people another way that's more accessible. So having that experience to reference and say to speak about it like, oh, I did this with this person and it was like really insightful or whatever their experience was, I think
Mhm.
is helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know I don't want to switch gears too much if you don't want to go there, but in terms of the vision board workshops I do, I started those in 2017. So give or take around a year into my private practice. And so many people were interested, like professionals wanted to do it. Like I did several private practices that were like, yeah, I want to do it for my team and we could extend it out to the larger community. So I've done lots of those at this point. And it's always great that there is interest, people see the value. I get so many people writing me that all these things came true in my personal and professional life.
Wow,
So,
that's awesome.
yeah.
So cool. I have a plan with the therapist in my practice. We're doing one in December at our team meeting. That was everybody said, we want to do a vision board, thing for our professional goals.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do it. Should be fun.
Yeah. It's
So
great. And
are
if I
you
may
go
go,
ahead.
yeah, just to throw it out there, like in terms of what I love about mine, um, like vision board workshops have been around forever, right? And anybody can make a board and hang it up. But I have it drama therapy heavy. So it's all about like using rituals to let go together, using the drama therapy to look at our obstacles and having people in the group role play obstacles for each other and role play going up against their obstacles, role play as their future self, get advice from their future self on how to get there. I even do role play with the strengths, like choosing our inner strengths and sort of using that to explore ourselves, gratitude and awe kind of practice at the end. So it's not just like the traditional making of the board, still great, but I love that
Yeah.
I found a way to do all these other elements that really bring it to life.
Oh, I know that sounds fantastic. And you're doing that virtually?
Yes. Yeah, I was doing it all in person until the pandemic hit, and then I was like, "People love these, I don't wanna stop doing them," and then I started doing them on Zoom, and people can come from all over now, so it's really cool that I've had all these people who for a couple of years there was like, "I wanna join, but I can't because it's so far," and
Mhm.
now they can, and I've had some colleagues who actually love these enough that they've attended several, I
Nice.
have a lot of cheerleaders and I love it. And I've been told it translates well online, that there's not much loss. Like in person, I get to use scarves with people to enhance the role play, but online it works just as well. So it's so
How do
cool.
you navigate that in terms of like if you have, 15 or 20 people in your Zoom, how do you navigate the role playing? Is it in the large round? Are you like using breakout rooms?
Both. So
Oh.
depending on the activity, like the gratitude at the end, I'll have people go in pairs and I'll have them share about when they felt grateful and to sort of playback theater style, play it back to each other after they hear a story about gratitude. So that's easier to do in the breakout rooms, for example. But with like the obstacles and the future self, I'll just have somebody volunteer to be the main person we're exploring, and then they get to pick people in the group who are going to play certain roles. Like, all
Mm.
right, this what's your first obstacle? I always tell people up to 3 just for the sake of time. So hey, time management, this is that person. And then, okay, so what resources do you need to go up against that obstacle? And picking someone in the group to be a spouse and someone to be a friend. I've even had people pick their pets, right? So someone's just
Oh my
gonna
gosh, that's so
speak on
cute.
behalf of a cat or a dog. So we assign the roles ahead of time. And for the sake of keeping it clean, I'll say, like, all right, I want to hear from the spouse right now. I want to hear from the dog right now. And so I'm very clear with who's going to go next in the role play and that sort of thing. Because you have to, right? Like you just said,
Mhm.
the Zoom room gotta, and I don't make them too big. I've never done more than in person. I've done like between 20 and 30 sometimes, but I like to keep them smaller, under 20 if I can.
Mhm. Well, that's a lot to pack in a few hours. I
Mm,
think, what is it, 2.5 hours
yeah.
that you have scheduled with them. So between the board, do they make the board before they come in or you make it together?
So when I was doing them in person, and I did do an in-person one last year, the first one since the pandemic went down, and I did it outdoors, which was cool in a park. But then, hey, the wind was blowing all the art supplies everywhere, so it was a little challenging. But when I have them in person, I actually do 3 hours then, and I'll designate the middle hour to the boards. I'll do like the first hour is letting go, middle hour making the board, last hour the all right, let's how to concretize what we're going to do with action steps, right? Um, Online, I found it much easier to send out instructions on both how to make a hard copy board and a digital board. So people can choose which way they
Mm.
want to make it. And that way they could take their time, because part of the feedback I would get in person is I could be here all day making this board.
Of course.
And I'd be like, "I get it, but I also really wanna do the active stuff." Like, that's as an experiential therapist, that's the stuff I love. It's like, "All right, it's nice to have this visual, but I don't want it just be a passive thing. I wanna make sure we tend to getting down to business with that." So yeah, having them make it in advance, and I tell them, like, have it with them, whether a picture of it or the actual thing. Um, and it also helps me keep the cost down because I don't have to supply, everything like I used to. I used to have to
Oh
schlep stuff if
yeah.
I was going to other practices and stuff like that, you know? Having all the magazines, the scissors, the glue, the boards, it's a lot.
It
So I
sure
love it,
is.
but yeah, right? Um, so yeah, online, it makes it easier in that sense, more accessible. Mm, yeah, both are good.
No, that's wonderful. I think that's really helpful, and it sets you apart in how you're facilitating the whole process,
Yes.
versus ones where I've attended where it just simply is the board and
Yeah.
like talking about it, which is great.
Right. Yeah.
But I love that you're integrating a whole process of like, okay, it's not just about what's to come, it's what's no longer serving me, and having that ritual of letting go in the group is so empowering, I think, versus if you're doing that by yourself.
Mhm.
There's some, it's the witness, right? That that others are bearing witness to this process, and we're doing it collectively together, which is really cool. And then the role playing, facilitating the role plays to actually work through any barriers to getting to where you want to go. That part is like
And my favorite
brilliant.
part always, and I've had so many people get so choked up when I let them role play with their future self. So they pick someone to play their future self. They let them know, hey, along the way, as we're doing these role plays, they could say a mantra or they could say something to cheer themselves on the whole way. And then at the end, I have them become their future selves and say what it feels like and give themselves advice on, like, okay, so what did you need to get here? And then I have that person reflect back what they just heard, so that the person who's exploring their future gets to hear, they get to like look right in the eyes of their future self and be told, like, look, I made it, this is great, this is what you needed to stay the course. And people just always get so choked up, and I love it.
Oh yeah. It's you're doing like the EMDR cognitive interweaves, right? Like,
Yeah.
but I feel like the methods really complement one
Yes.
another. But having that dramatized and being able to actually see it versus imagine it. Again, there's just something so tangible about it that really moves people into a different space.
Yeah.
Yeah. What other kinds of things have you done to kind of set your practice up that it's not just focused on individual therapy? Because what I hear is that you've really been intentional about kind of diversifying how you have your practice.
Yeah. At first, it wasn't necessarily that intentional. It's so funny. I can't remember how I first got the idea for the vision board workshops. I don't remember the moment, but I'm so glad I did because they're so popular and people really love them. I actually have even done them for local businesses. Like, they've found me on social media and they're like, yeah, we want to hire you. Even a granola company I love that's local. They hired me for their team.
That's
Yeah, it's so
fabulous.
cool. A local beauty store that I love, they also asked me to do like a ladies' night. Oh, it's so great. So that kind of happened. Like, I was like, I'm just gonna put this out in the world and like it might be a one-time thing. And then it turned into demand. So yeah, I do those at least in January and sometimes other times of the year. And then it became like I really like workshops, and I like offering these kind of things to people who might either already have a therapist and they want to do something right else. Um, and I love self-care stuff, as we all
Yeah.
often do. And so another workshop I came up with, and I haven't gotten to do it as much as my vision board ones, is using the four elements, the water, air, fire, and earth. Um, I know it's debatable in different cultures, like the main elements, but those are the ones I'm going by. And I make stations with scarves. And so there's the four stations, and we first go through and we get rid of the things we don't want. You can see a theme in how my mind operates, right? So we go
Mhm.
around and like let the water take the things we don't want and let the earth take it. And this was based on, I collaborated with somebody who is, I think, a social worker by background, but also loves dance. So we collaborated. They do journey dance, and
Ooh.
so we did like a workshop where I led my portion and she led hers. Um, so it was based on a book about vicarious trauma. And the idea was that the different elements represent different things that we deal with as healing professionals. And it's not just therapists, but anybody. But I made it kind of more widespread. So at the different stations, there's different things to get rid of, right? Like expectations of self and others is one of them. Um, any
Mm.
sadness, grief, and that sort of thing to get rid of. So it's a process of letting specific things go and then going back around those stations and taking from them advice from nature, right? So the river might say, go with the flow. Be sure of yourself is one of them. Be clear is the water, right? So there's
Mm.
different things. And when I'm guiding people through these, we're doing rituals to sort of embody, right? So, um, using the scarves to be waves and letting the group members throw the things into the waves. Or
Ah,
with the earth part, I have them plant seeds, whatever expectations of self and others they need to get rid of, they're going to plant into the ground. And then when we come back to that station, we become flowers or trees or whatever plant we want to be. And as I read the advice from nature, people get to embody it, like take root, right? Root for others,
mm.
those sort of things.
This
So,
sounds so fun.
yeah. Yeah, so that's something else I've done, and I want to keep doing that. And I haven't done that one online, but I'm like, I think there's probably a way there that I can't do it. Just haven't gotten there yet. So workshops have been great because again, it offers people less commitment and still get to, benefit from this stuff.
Hmm.
And then more recently, I've found myself branching out into the consulting because I have so many people. I hustle hard, and it's probably because of the creative arts therapy part. Like I
Hmm.
know therapists, again, more traditional types that struggle to build a private practice, especially not taking insurance, right? Because so many people don't want to deal with that. For me, I had to because without the state licensure, I can't panel with insurance. So I had to be
Hmm.
private pay from the get-go. And I feel like I have to prove myself because of the creative arts therapy thing. So I've hustled really, really, really hard. Um, People have seen how successful I was. It took me 3 years to build into a full-time caseload, which my understanding from talking to even some counselor friends of mine, somebody told me it took them 7 years with a
Oh, wow.
traditional counseling degree, right?
Hmm.
So 3 years to me without being able to take insurance is not bad by any means to become
No.
full. And I've been full since to the point of turning people away all the time. Um, so yeah, it's been more like people come to me where they want to consult about, so how did you build? Like you obviously were successful. And
Hmm.
I decided, okay, so that's something I'll officially add is consulting for the private practice kind of stuff. And clinical stuff because I've always been a
Hmm.
person who's been in peer groups. I've never not been in a peer supervision group. I just love to have that, to always have people give me feedback and constantly learn. And so a lot of my peers will come to me with clinical issues too. So both the clinical and the practice building have become something I do. And then last year I got my board certification for training drama therapists. And that's something I had wanted to do for a long time and sat on. And so now like I've added that formal supervising of other drama therapists.
Hmm.
And along the vision board workshop stuff, I'm in the process of writing a workbook because not everybody
Mm.
can attend the workshops, or some people who aren't as social might not want to be in a group setting. And I have done individual work with some of my clients, and
Mhm.
I actually am also trying to branch out into maybe doing some coaching around that for people who want to do that process with me individually. And I thought, hey, a workbook would be a great thing for some people who want to have that more introspective. They could take their time to do it. So that's my hope. And yeah, and writing in other ways, as you know, that I've submitted a
Yes.
chapter to a book. So lots of stuff that's branching out. And the only thing I haven't done yet that I'd like to do eventually is retreats. And I know those are a lot of work too, even though they're fun. So
Yeah.
branching out.
I feel like the hard part for retreats is the marketing piece
Mm,
and getting people to sign up, at least from all the folks that I know that have done them or do offer them, and like
makes sense.
listening to their process.
Yeah.
But if you have a strong kind of
Well, and it's challenging. I mean, I do have a strong networking, approach. I'm comfortable with that. But even with my vision board workshops, I get a lot of interest, but then I don't get a lot of commitment sometimes. There's some years that I only get like 5 people, and I could still do it. Like it's great to have an intimate group. But like then there's years that I've 20 people. So you never know. And it's
Yep.
not a personal thing. It's just like whatever's going on and everybody's schedules don't align, so it's
Absolutely.
hard.
It's unpredictable, I think, with scheduling. Everyone's so busy, and especially I know your vision board workshop, I was looking on the website, is like the first week of January,
Hmm.
or maybe the first Sunday in January,
Yes.
Jan- January 7th, I
Yeah.
think. And you know, people coming back from holidays and that kind of thing too, I feel like plays a role into how how invested people are in showing up for different offerings right
Yeah.
after the new year. Um, or at least here in my practice, I've had that where that first week is very slow. Um,
Had too bad of luck in the January stuff. It's always tricky though. It's like now that I'm doing them online, I did afternoons. That way people on the West Coast can join. Because I had complaints about that in the past when I did like 10 o'clock in the morning. They're like, I'm not going to join 7 o'clock West Coast time. So now I figure, okay, 1 o'clock East Coast time, people can ideally do both coasts. And
yeah,
people are welcome from outside of the country. I'm trying to think if I've had anybody. I think I've had at least Canada join, but yeah, I mean, since it's online, anybody anywhere can technically join.
that's awesome. I know I want to go back to, you were saying that you're, officially a trainer
Mhm.
for drama therapy. And is that specifically like somebody who provides supervision, or are you actually teaching classes to people that want to add drama therapy to their kind of suite of what they offer?
Great question. So, board certified trainers really, the main purpose they serve is we have the alternative track in drama therapy. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So, my understanding is dance therapy is the only other creative art therapy that has this. So, what it is because there's so few university programs, is that the
Mhm.
alternative track allows people to get another degree. And then they study with the trainer to get the knowledge they need to meet the credentials. So
Ooh.
somebody could get a counseling degree or they could get a social worker degree, and then they take the extra training and supervision with the BCT to get what they need. So some BCTs have their own training classes, like they'll provide the intro to drama therapy, the principles they need to know, and special populations and these sort of things. And others just sort of act as a guide to like, hey, there's these other people doing these trainings, but here you go. I'm going to help you get where you need to go, and providing that supervision hour stuff. So I am only a year in, so I'm still figuring out what I'm going to do. But that being said, you mentioned the teaching thing. So for a long time, I have been part of a play therapy organization in Maryland.
Mm.
Um, and some other creative arts therapists, especially art therapists, Peggy Kolodny, who you know,
Oh,
I
she's
believe.
lovely.
Yes,
Yes.
we actually worked in the same office when I started private practice because
Oh,
her and my
wow.
friend were in the same collective for years and years. And
That's so
so
cool.
I shared space.
Small world.
Yes, and the Baltimore area has a lot of great people. I love it. Like we have a lot of local
You
celebrities.
you do, like Laura Reagan, who's
Yes.
wonderful. I love her.
Lisa Farrens, who's not a creative arts therapist, but is a big fan and hires a lot of creative arts therapists to train through her institute. Yeah, so we've got some good people. And yeah, so Peggy was actually the person who hooked me up with this play therapy organization. And I have done drama therapy and trauma work trainings through them, drama therapy and adolescent work through them. And so my thought is with the BCT to get to a point where I can offer some of those courses for alternative track students, perhaps.
Mm, that would be really cool.
Hmm.
Yeah. I I know a lot of people who want to pursue, you know,
Yes.
entry into our world,
Yes.
the creative arts therapies world, and then they too find themselves up against but I don't want to get another master's. and I don't blame them. I mean, it's expensive. It's a lot of work and energy and time. And it's going to be a lot of duplicate knowledge. But certainly doing an alternative track offers an opportunity
Yeah.
where, doing another master's may feel really prohibitive. You'll have to keep me informed if once you start offering trainings.
Well, and funny enough, I just started a Facebook group for the BCTs because at our conference 2 weeks ago, there's no dialoguing between people between conferences. We have a BCT meeting at the conference, but it's like, okay, so how do we know what each other are teaching? How do we know, like how to get the people we're supposed to be guiding? I obviously, and we could talk more about that with my Facebook group for creative arts therapists, but I'm a person all about community, connection, talking, not reinventing the wheel, because so many of us in creative arts therapy land feel like we have to reinvent the wheel so often when we don't. Like there's been a lot of us doing this for a long time. So if only we
Mhm.
actually communicate, the resources are there.
Yeah. Yeah. Building community,
Mm.
I feel like is really important, especially like what you were saying, your numbers are so small. And so people are spread out all over, and there's probably not very many people um, that are nearby that are also drama therapists. I know when I first started practicing in this area of Florida where I'm at, I didn't know anybody. I had no connections. I
Mhm.
felt like I was like operating by myself in like a desert.
Yeah.
Like people didn't even know what it was back then. They were like, "What? You provide therapy for artists? What exactly is that?" Or they
Yep.
think you're providing art classes. No, that's not what we're doing.
Right.
um,
Exactly why I wrote about the misperceptions. Yeah.
And so it's nice to be able to have opportunities for greater connection, but between us all now, like through social media and groups like yours. And where before that, you'd have to go to the conference,
Yeah.
and maybe you could only get there once every couple of years because
Yep.
that too is cost prohibitive. It's
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we go into the Facebook group? That
Yeah, let's talk
good
a little bit
timing?
about it. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
when did you create that?
2017. So again, I started private practice 2016, and I found a lot of resources helpful as far as private practice building goes, but they were all geared towards more traditional therapists. And I did Miranda and Kelly's Zinni
Mm-hmm.
Business School Boot Camp, and I did find that they had some creative arts therapists. I had asked when I did the interview for it, like, are other people doing this? Are you familiar with our stuff? And they were very, very supportive, and they helped me like with my website copy and stuff. That was really helpful to get another view on it. Um, but I still felt like there was no resource for creative arts therapists who are in private practice. And I felt like it's not always a safe space to talk about the licensure issues. People will instantly attack in some communities over it. Even amongst creative arts therapists, I find some people, people who are like, well, I went back to school and I did it, so you should. And all this stuff that's like, not everybody has the resources. Some of us are more, it's a systemic thing and it's more like, stick it to the man. I'm not going to give into your like, white supremacy patriarchy, like who gets to be important by your definitions, that kind of a
Mm-hmm.
thing. So it's complicated. And I wanted a safe space for people to connect and to share things like that, and to have a place where we just kind of understand each other's language in a way the general Facebook private practice groups don't. So, yeah, that's what it was born from. And I think it's been a great community. I always tell everybody, like, I actually had to step down from being an admin from a local therapist page because it was too intense. There was constantly fighting.
Oh
Uh, yeah,
no.
admin got accused of things, just like, of course, if you try to be a peacekeeper, then you get accused of not taking a strong enough stance. It's just you can't please everybody. But
Hmm.
the creative arts therapist group has been so quiet. There's very rarely drama in there, and people are so lovely, and it's a great resource.
Yeah, for sure. I I only learned about it, I feel like maybe earlier this year or sometime last year. I don't like time escapes me, but it was more recent. I didn't know that it was out there, so I was glad to find that and to join and see, my fellow colleagues there and sharing resources and information, and opportunities, right? Opportunities to learn from one another and grow. I think is important. And I felt the same way about podcasting. I was listening to all these like
Mm.
therapy podcasts, and I found like two, and both of them had like a episode and then nothing.
Ah,
And and I'm sure it was probably because they realized like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of
yeah.
work. I can't sustain it. And so I was like, I want to highlight the voices of creative arts therapists and expressive arts therapists. Um, I want us to have our own platform and
Mm.
to share what we do, but also to give the up and coming folks the resources to help them get started and build their private practice. I don't know about you, but I had a very difficult time finding a job that was specifically for art
Yes.
therapy,
Even harder for drama.
right? And you get pigeonholed in very, very high burnout
Yes.
opportunities
Which is
because
even the, counselors and all the other master's levels we're talking about. It's not good for
Mhm,
anybody, but especially hard for us.
yeah. And so I feel like we have to we have to build and educate and advocate for our fields,
Yeah.
in the same way that we do for our clients. Um, and if we don't, then we won't be able to help our clients because they won't know how beneficial what we're offering can be for them.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, Krista, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today. If you had any like last final words of advice for up and coming creative arts therapists who are kind of dipping their toe in the water into private practice, what would you share with them?
Hmm. I guess three things come to mind. One is the networking piece. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And yes, you might have to educate people, but I have found more people are welcoming and interested than the opposite. So
Mm,
there's that. Something else that was really helpful for me is, and this is again for any kind of therapist, because we can't ask for testimonies from clients for things like Google and Yelp and Facebook and all that, where we can get rated, to be able to ask our colleagues, people who've worked
mhm,
with us, people in peer groups with us, people in my case, like when I networked and I would do a little training at someone's place, or people who've taken my vision board workshops, I'll ask those people, can you just speak to the capacity you know me in and like what you see as my strengths or anything like that? And so I have a lot of really good reviews from those sources, and I get a lot of calls from clients who can trust my work in that sense, right? So that's been a really helpful private practice building thing. And the last piece I will leave, because the more I am a therapist and the more I've battled my own shame being a creative arts therapist and that sort of thing, things aren't always personal. Sometimes the system is very messed up.
mhm.
It's not a reflection on us. I
Yeah.
know even early on in my private practice, there was a point for 2 months in my first year where I didn't have any clients. Like I had a few and then they all dropped off for summer. And I was like, am I still in private practice if I don't have any active clients? And I had to do some drama therapy on myself to say like, okay, there's other roles I'm doing right now. I'm still networking. I'm still putting up blogs. I'm still doing all the things, even if I don't have any active clients right now. So it is
Mhm.
hard to build a private practice, but not to always take it to that, it's my fault kind of a thing.
Yeah. So being very compassionate with
Yes.
yourself, as you're learning how to put it all together and make it happen. And I think that there's something about the longer you've been doing it, the easier it becomes in
Mm.
terms of like referrals and things like that. When you're just starting out, you're starting from nothing and you're having to build everything. It's a tremendous effort. Takes a while to get there,
Yes,
but you can.
for sure.
Yeah. Well, if folks want to check your website out,
Mhm.
what is the link for that? How can they find your practice and your vision board workshop?
So my website is www.kristaverrastro.com. And I do have the vision board workshops. It's on the bottom of the homepage. There's a little picture that people can click on, and it does say vision board workshops, and it has always information there. On my blog page, there is a sign up if people want to get on my mailing list. I announce the workshop. So even if they can't make the next one, that is a space where they can keep up to date in any other workshops, any other offerings I do have. And I will say, just because I do have the upcoming one, as you mentioned, it is January 7th of 2024, and it is online, so anyone can join if they'd like. And I do have a discount code for the listeners. So anyone
Ooh,
listening who wants to join can use Creative 2024
love
as
it.
the code.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for offering that. I hope that people take advantage. It sounds like it's going to be an incredible experience.
Mm.
And yeah, that you've made it into something really special and unique for participants. Um, well, thank you so much again. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Creative Psychotherapist podcast. I hope you enjoyed the conversation that I had with Krista and all the um, beneficial things that she shared about practice building. And I just love how the vision board workshops that she's offering turned into um, something that is kind of a staple in her practice each year, and how it's been able to bring her out into different businesses in the community. And if you're interested in attending one, she has one coming up in January, Sunday, January 7th. It's going to be totally online from 1 to 3:30 p.m. And you can find more about that at www.kristaverrastro.com /vision board workshops. And if you decide to register, use code creative 2024 for $10 off. If you like what you hear on the show, please rate, review, and subscribe. And of course, we'd be grateful for you to share this and other episodes that you feel would be beneficial to friends and colleagues that you know.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Creative Psychotherapist. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. For show notes, downloads, and additional resources, head over to the website at www.creativeclinicianscorner.com.